Hey cherubs, thank you so much for joining me for this video. I'm going to take the opportunity today to talk a little bit more about my connections with both the Blessed Mother, the Virgin Mary, and also Hel, the Norse goddess of the underworld, and just talking a little bit about how I connect with those divine feminine presences on my journey, what kinds of things I do to honour them and to connect with their energies, to learn lessons from them, and to feel like I'm walking with them on my path. So this is going to be a personal kind of video where I talk a little bit more about some of the key things that I do, some of the tools that I use. So if you're looking for ideas on how you can connect with a matron or a goddess that you want to unify with, or if you just feel like your relationship with your particular goddess or god, whatever the case may be, whatever being you work with, has become a little bit stale and you're looking to get things a little bit more re-energized, then stick with me during the course of this video. I'm going to be talking a little bit about how I get things moving in the right direction and how it feels right for me. And obviously, as usual, the disclaimer is there. What's right for me might not be right for you. You've got to find your own way forward. You've got to find your own path. That's absolutely at the core of everything that I talk about on my channel. It's really important that I clarify that to audience members and clients. I'm not trying to be dogmatic. I'm not trying to tell anyone else how to do anything. And I've gone very much on my own journey to kind of figure out what is best for me and what really feels right for me. So I'm just going to put these ideas out there. If you like them, you can take them. If you don't, you can give them right back, you know, Anchorman style, okay? On my personal journey with both the Divine Mother and also the Dark Mother, or the Holy Mother and the Dark Mother as I regularly refer to them rather than using their names, I do have representations of both of them on my altar, and in fact my altar space actually looks like a pretty even split on the left side and the right side between Hel and representations of Hel, stones that are relating to her, images that relate to her, and then Mary on the other side. So it really does look almost as though it kind of looks like a divine feminine and masculine split within traditional Wiccan structures, where you've got the god represented and the goddess represented, except there's no god on my altar, darling. I'm basically just riding with two cosmic mothers, and that's how I like it. That's how it feels right for me. I have no judgment on how anybody else wants to do anything, but I definitely get hives whenever I come across this dogma that people come out with sometimes about how women need to have a representation of the divine masculine or a representation of the male energy or a male god, or just stop. Just stop. Just mute it, okay? No one cares. No one's fucking interested. Like I said, you've got to find what works for you. You've got to find what is appropriate for you. I do have a connection with what we would commonly say is the divine masculine, but it's something that I do in my own way, and it's very personal to me, and it's not something that I have represented on my altar. So I basically have a kind of Mary-esque side of the altar and a more Hel-oriented side of the altar, and then I've got things at the front of the altar space that are to do with different things, and then a space in the middle where I can do my readings and workings and that kind of stuff, and other things that I'm working with. But I do have almost a very extreme representation of the Blessed Virgin on one side, with the rose water that's sacred to her and the working candle, the pink working candle that's sacred to her. On the other side I have the Hel oil, I have the black candle that's sacred to Hel, and I have an image of Hel. And that's how it really feels right for me, and it feels like that sense of balance and that sense of duality that is so representative of many of the dualistic parts of myself, I suppose. So to me, that's what works, and that's what's been working for quite a long time now. So that's something that's meaningful to me, that I have both of those divine feminine forces, if you like, represented. I don't check in with my goddesses every day, and yes, I do refer to the Blessed Mother as a goddess. She's been deified by the Catholic Church alone, never mind what witches have decided to do since they've been hooking up with her. So yes, I do consider her to be a goddess in her own right, and I don't check in with these goddesses every day. I don't do devotionals to them every day. I don't necessarily light the working candles for each, the devotional candles for each every day. It's really just how I feel moved to do so. So some days will be very, very goddess centric for me, and some days it will be all about checking in with their energy and really asking for messages from them, drawing cards, going through the words of power, going through the prayers dedicated to them using beads. And other times it's not going to be that way. I'm not necessarily going to to light their devotional candles. I'm not going to refer to them in prayer, and it really is just about me flowing into the moment and doing what I feel is necessary in the moment. So yes, even though I do work with goddesses, and definitely they do have an important place in my practice, they are not like central daily focus areas for me. I do feel like it is very much possible for me to flow into what needs to happen on a daily basis, on a regular basis. It's not something where I feel like I need a structure. There is no routine really, it's just what I feel moved to do and called to do when I sit down. So I use black candles for hell, and I use pink candles ordinarily for the Blessed Virgin. I just pulled these out from my drawer, my altar drawer, because I've always got a ready collection of them. And basically what I do if I want to connect with either of them is I light the candle that is associated with them, the devotional candle that I have set up next to the images of them, and then I will basically speak some words of power or opening prayers, and I have separate words of power and opening prayers for each. And I actually have quite a few different prayers or statements memorized. I have them written down. Some of the ones I use for hell I've been using since 2011, so for a long time I've been using them, so they're very much burned into my brain box now. And I'm building up more and more words of power and opening statements and kind of callings and summonings, etc., that are more connected to the Blessed Virgin as well. But definitely I've got almost like a book of them for hell at this point in time. So basically I'll light the candle and I will say some words of power, and I will normally then start to either talk out loud, just as I would do with a friend, just talking about what's concerning me, what's on my mind. Usually my hands will be together in prayer position because that just feels right for me. Sometimes like that and sometimes like that, with my elbows up on the altar normally. And I'll just be talking, or I'll just be kind of deeply breathing and just bringing my concerns to mind, or thinking about what it is that I want to achieve for the day, what kinds of things are worrying me, or what kinds of things I want to place my focus on. And I might ask aloud or actually just silently within me for my goddess to come to me and aid me, to show me the right way to go. I might just invoke the energy of my goddess by just confirming for myself that I see and feel the power of the goddess directly within me, that whatever is external that I glorify is also internal that I can access. I do use beads for both of my main goddesses that I work with, so probably predictably I do use rosaries when I am praying or doing devotionals for the Blessed Virgin. I have a collection of rosaries, and you can see some of them in my very old video that I did about spiritual jewellery, which I'll link down below for you, along with a few of the other videos that I've done about goddess worship and communing with goddesses and that kind of thing. At the moment I have all of my special rosaries and vintage rosaries packed away. I don't know why, I just fancied working with these sort of these kind of plastic ones that you give to children before their first Holy Communion. I really like working with these. I've got blue ones, I've got white ones, I've got a white one that's actually really old. It's pretty much nearly broken, and I got it at a charity shop for very, very little money, and it's got a really good energy to it. These ones I bought recently. I like to have them dotted around my apartment. I like to work with them. I like to use them to pray. And I have my own kind of take on the prayer of Our Lady. I'm okay with the prayer of Our Lady, but I'm not Catholic, so I like to play around with my own version of the prayer of Our Lady, which I always loved since I was a small child. And I actually have another version of the prayer of Our Lady, or at least I use the rhythm of the prayer of Our Lady and the basic structure of the sentences of the prayer of Our Lady, but I've taken all of the Mary-esque stuff out and I've put dark goddess stuff in instead, and that's what I use for hell, or one of the main things that I use when I'm doing my devotionals to hell. So a lot of the time then I will do my devotionals for the Blessed Virgin on the rosary, and then for hell I have these incredible beads that were made for me by Joey Morris from Starry Eyed Supplies. I've had these for the longest time now, and they sit in a special dish that has a sentimental value on my altar in front of my image of hell, and this is usually what I use for hell, although there are some other beads that I choose to use as well. So I might choose, for instance, my Chaos Star beads that I have that were made for me, that I absolutely adore, that have got the Chaos Star on them. Absolutely love these. And you can see they're made with the carnelian and the jet, and I absolutely love these beads, so I may sometimes use them. I also have some mala beads, some jade mala beads, so I use these as well, and these are always on the altar available to me, so I may use them. Although these mala beads I also do use for more let's say kind of less hell oriented stuff and more general things, so really just mindfulness meditations, devotions to spirit, devotions to the cosmos, that kind of thing. So these are not just hell centric. I will use these in other capacities as well, but I have been known to pick them up for hell. But usually I do use rosaries for the Blessed Virgin, although it really doesn't matter, you know, if it's got a string on it and it's got separate beads on it, I can work with it, I can use it, it's okay. I can use a chain for a plug from the bathroom if I've got nothing else handy. It doesn't need to be flowery and fancy, it can be very, very basic. A devotional is something that I will do to honour a goddess. So, you know, really going through the beads is a way to give my attention and my honour and my commitment to the goddess. And I may also do other things like write and read devotional poetry, which I then burn in the cauldron if I want to and if I have time. I may also create a little incense blend which includes some of the sacred oil in the case of hell, or rose water in the case of the Blessed Virgin, and basically just burn the incense and have that as a devotional as well. So this is not something that I do every day. This is not something that I feel inclined to do every day, but when I feel inclined to do it, I feel inclined quite strongly to do it. And sometimes I will just do it for Mother Mary, and sometimes just for hell, and sometimes I will do for both. And there are rituals that I've done where I've fully had both sides of the altar lit up, and it doesn't feel to me like there's any weird disparity. It doesn't feel like that's something I'm not supposed to be doing. It very much feels as though these two goddesses make up two halves of a whole for me. I make a point of not just using the same words of power or the same prayers or the same words for honouring the goddesses every time. I do change things up, and I do also like to go through periods where I try out new word combinations and I get experimental. And some of the devotional poetry that I write, I might find certain sentences or phrases from that to be really powerful, and I might choose to keep some of those words or phrases and use them later as words of power, as mantras, as prayers, as words to use during devotionals. So I do like to mix things up. I do like to write new things, and I do like to keep things interesting where the wording is concerned. But I also do feel that if you use the same group of words or the same phraseology over and over and over and over again, obviously that collection of words then has great power, and it is almost forged in the fire of the comfort that you feel from it, the power that you get from it. And I learned that with the prayer of Our Lady growing up in an Irish Catholic family, right? So I was very aware that these words, when they're said over and over again, have almost the effect of an elixir, a spiritual elixir, and you are changed alchemically when you repeat those words, when you say them aloud, etc., when you say them in unison with others, or when you say them alone. So I do like to make sure that I return to groups of words and phrases and mantras that I've used over and over again in association with both of my goddesses, but I do like to mix it up as well and play around with new things as well. I do use art as a way to connect with both of these key goddesses, these key working goddesses in my life, and I use the art in a couple of different ways. First of all, I have made devotional art relating to both the Blessed Mother and also the Dark Mother. So basically that means that I have made art to honour them, to honour the role that they play in my life, the way they make me feel and all that good stuff. But I also have been known to make channeled art, and this is something that I've done a number of times for myself, more than a handful of times for myself, during these sessions that I've come to lovingly refer to as my Tea with the Goddess sessions, which is where I really set some time aside to go deeper in my connection with one of my goddesses or both of them. And I basically really use a big chunk of that time to create channeled art. So I really just call in the energies, the intentions, the wisdom, the whole vibration of the goddess, and then I make a piece of art that I feel is really channeled according to what she wants me to see and what she really wants me to connect with. And then afterwards I'll kind of stand back from the image, look at it and interpret it and scry with it and think about what it really was that she wanted me to know, what is she communicating through the image that she has actually caused me to create. And I really, really love doing this. And this is not just something that I do for myself. I actually do this for my clients. I actually offer the Tea with the Goddess experience as something that you can go through with me in video format. And during that kind of video experience, it's like a 2-part video experience that I do, I actually create a piece of channeled art for clients. So this is something that I do for others, not just for myself. Obviously, I also do channeled writings, and that's something that I do perhaps with the most regularity. So the Tea with the Goddess sessions, that's going to be something where I do set a few hours aside. So I'm going to plan it. It's not going to be something that I'm going to do spontaneously one morning when I sit down at the altar. It's going to be something that is planned for. It's going to be something that is pre-prepared. And basically with the Tea with the Goddess sessions, I sit down, I meditate, I call the goddess in, I drink some tea, I make some art, I sling some cards. I really take the chance to imbibe the wisdom of the goddess more fully and think about specific things that I want to focus on, or specific things that I'm looking to release or to bring in. And that's really my really more intense time with the goddess. But there are other times where I do very much channel the wisdom of the goddess, and I very much do bring forth something that is from her, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, the conduit, if you like, the vessel for it to come through. And that's something that happens on a more daily basis, and that's basically where I use the cards to glean messages from my goddesses, and then I write down, almost in a kind of channeling sort of way, in a very flowing, very open way, what the card means and what goddess wants me to know. So the Tea with the Goddess sessions are much more kind of like carving that time out and taking it seriously and really putting that time aside. Whereas normally what I will do, if I want to connect with Goddess, if I want that download of wisdom, if I want to commune with her, if I want to be with her, I will normally draw cards, and then I will write down in a special book that I keep by my altar what I feel those cards are really saying, like what is coming through from Goddess when I look at those particular cards. This is the book that I currently use to record my channeled messages that come through. I put my messages from the Blessed Mother in here, and also from the Dark Mother. I don't draw any distinction apart from using a different colour pen, but it's clearly obvious to me which goddess voice is coming through, but I do keep them both in this really beautiful book. This is actually a cover, and you can change the notepad out inside, so you have like a hardcover book inside, but the cover kind of makes sure that no matter how many little notebooks you go through, you always have this really beautiful cover on the front, which was made for me by a darling creature, and I absolutely adore it. I think it is just so goddess centric and beautiful, and I feel very, very lucky to own something like this that was so lovingly handcrafted. It's really gorgeous. So this is the book that I currently use. So basically what I will do is I will grab my cards that are pertaining to one goddess or another. So let's say that I want to get a message through from hell, and also a message from Mother Mary as well. So let's say that I'm starting the day, I'm feeling it's going to be challenging, I feel called to connect with Goddess, I feel called to really, you know, just have that cosmic energy on side and lean into some contemplations that are kind of stamped and approved, let's say, by the divine feminine essences that are closest to my heart. Then what I will do is I will grab the cards that I use to connect with both of my goddess entities. Okay, so I use the Mother Mary Oracle more often than not to connect with Mary. To kind of get messages, get insights, get a feel for what is coming through from her. And then I will also use the Tarot of Bones. This is the deck that I use primarily for working with the Dark Mother, working with hell. So these two decks have really helped me to kind of level up in terms of getting the more frequent messages, the kind of daily messages, if you will, and being able to tune in much more quickly. I'm not saying in any world that you need to be doing something similar. I'm not saying that you need to have a deck or you need to have a divinatory system to work with a deity or to work with any kind of being, but it's what really works for me, and it's helped me so much to keep my connections with Goddess much more regular. Before I was working with cards for my goddesses, I definitely was struggling to find the time and the inclination to sit and really work with them, because I felt like I didn't really have a vehicle for messages to come through as easily and as readily as I would if I was doing devotionals with the beads, for example, or just sitting in contemplation and and, you know, asking Goddess to be with me and asking messages to come through. There's nothing wrong with that, and I do enjoy doing that. But one thing that's made it so much easier for me to go to Goddess more regularly and learn so much more about my connection with Goddess in a much quicker time is working with cards. So for me, it's really helped. So basically what I'll do is I'll shuffle the Tarot of Bones, and I will shuffle Mother Mary Oracle, and I will get the two cards out that come through, and I will lay them side by side. And then basically what I will do is I will then start to write. So I'll get the insights coming through, the energies will be flowing, I'll be understanding what it is that the Blessed Mother wants to communicate and what the Dark Mother wants to communicate. Sometimes one of them will come through with a lot more than the other. Sometimes one of them will really sort of be sitting in the background and the other will be very forthright, or there will be a lot of insights coming through. And I will basically channel, I will write down what comes through from the cards. What are the messages? What are the things I need to learn? What are the things I need to be looking out for? What are the energies and vibrations that are coming through that have been given to me from the Goddess? Now, I don't always draw cards for both Hell and the Blessed Virgin. Sometimes it will be one and sometimes it will be another. It really does depend. But I very much do like to have a card side by side representing the energies of these two very distinctly different divine feminine entities in my life. And together they provide a really interesting kind of entwining guidance that works on a number of different levels. So I do really enjoy doing that. I will usually always leave the cards out on the altar. So whether it was the morning, whether it was the evening, whenever I felt drawn to pull cards for one or both goddesses, I normally will leave the cards at the altar after I've done my channeling, and then I will contemplate on the cards again for a while after I've pulled them out. So say I pulled them in the morning, I'll want to look at them again before bed, and I may leave them out overnight until the next morning. So yeah, that's basically what I do. This has made it, as I said, so much easier to feel that the energies of the goddesses are accessible to me. I do choose to work with the concept of the goddess or the divine feminine as well. I don't just work with the specific archetypes of the Holy Mother and the Dark Mother, although to me that creates an amazingly winning combination, and it's very much where my sweet spot is right now and has been for quite a while now. It just feels so right, and I feel like I'm really where I need to be. And anyone who's had that feeling, anyone who's had to craft their own unique spiritual path and they've had that feeling of peace on their spiritual path and knowing that that's where they need to be, can definitely empathize with the feeling that I have inside, the fuzzy warm feeling that I have inside, that this is very much where I need to be right now, and this feels good and it feels fizzy. So you know, that is really amazing. But I do also choose to work with simply just the concept of the goddess, the essence of the divine female, if you will, and I do use cards for that as well, but I prefer to use my Journey of Love Oracle by Alana Fairchild, and sometimes also my Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot. And I do use my Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot as well, just for doing much more kind of like down-to-earth, practical, I suppose logistical card draws, which may not necessarily be linked so much to the archetype of goddess or the archetype of the divine female, but it's much more about kind of like problem solving, strategizing. I want to say the more real world stuff, but that seems like a kind of wrong way to say it, because the work that I do with Goddess is very much real world, and it is very much about feeling that there is that presence that is guiding me through my challenges and helping me to make decisions and craft my life as I want it to be. So I wouldn't say that it's not real world as though it's like pie in the sky, airy fairy fluff, because it's not at all. But Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot helps me to basically just negate any goddess-centric stuff if that's not where my head is. If I just really want to think about something in a way that doesn't necessarily centre the concept of the divine feminine or goddess, then I can do that using the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot. I also make a lot of devotional art that is just really connected to the energies and concepts of goddess overall. So I'm not really centering the Blessed Mother, I'm not really centering the Dark Mother. It's much more about just thinking about goddess as an energy, I suppose, and what that means to me and what I've been learning about it and what is coming through to me and from me and through me. So I can do much more general devotional art as well. I definitely perform rituals and do full-length readings pertaining into just the Blessed Virgin or just the Dark Mother, and I feel like it's really just a case of intuitively knowing where I need to spend my time, whether or not I want to lean more into my relationship with Mary, whether or not I want to lean more into my relationship with hell, and it really just is about kind of doing that intuitively. I do it intuitively. I don't do it in any rigid kind of way. I'm not trying to be really artfully self-conscious about it, and I'm not worried so much about balancing it exactly down the middle. It doesn't really work like that for me, although I do understand that it does work that way for others, but it doesn't work that way for me per se. And I still consider hell to be my matron, but I think my ideas about what those kinds of words mean and where I am with that are a little different to what they used to be. I certainly do see them as having a very interesting energy of duality in the power that they give to me, and I see perfect reflections of both what I am and what I'm trying to learn how to be coming from both of them, and so together they work as a really strong reflection of something that I need, and a reflection of something that is very much at the core of me. So, you know, I definitely feel like it's possible for me to just spend time sitting with the Blessed Virgin and doing a full-length reading, using her cards, doing devotionals to her exclusively, working with her exclusively, and really just feeling her light and her support and her warmth surrounding me. And equally, I feel it's just as meaningful sometimes and just as relevant sometimes to work exclusively with hell, do a ritual or full-length reading completely connected to hell, and really just kind of let myself lean more into that energy. I was going to say that darker energy, but it's way more complicated than that. But, you know, lean into that energy. So I can do that, and I feel like that's something that doesn't deplete me to do. I know it doesn't work that way for everybody, but it does really work that way for me. So this has been a little bit of information about what kinds of things I do to connect with the two central goddesses that I work with in my practice, that are the most kind of present in my practice, the two divine feminine energies that I give the most of my time and attention and focus to, and I feel the most divinely guided and inspired by. So I hope this has been useful and interesting. If you do want to set up a tea with the goddess experience with me, I will leave the link for that down below for you. If you're curious to understand more about what it is or how it works, you can have a look at the details over at my online store using the link below. And basically the way that I do it for clients is very, very much similar to the way that I do it for myself. So if you were curious about what it involves or anything like that, you can just have a look through the description. I also offer spiritual counselling sessions, guys, and spiritual counselling packages, so definitely check those out too. I will leave the links down below. I've got mini goddess guidance readings, I've got full-length goddess guidance readings, I've got the spiritual path reading. I'll leave a smattering of different things down below that might spark your interest. So much love until next time, baby cakes. Goddess be with you, and blessed be.